Have you ever been watching a live streamer or a YouTuber, no, specifically live streamer? Or have you ever been on TikTok and seen an interview where they ask somebody of note on YouTube or Twitch or any of that shit if they have any advice for becoming a new Twitch streamer or a new YouTuber? Have you ever taken note of how many times that's been asked? A substantial amount of times where some random dude, right? It's always the same setup and it's mainly for TikTok interviews. They'll walk up to this person, they'll ask any advice for new streamers. Then they'll walk up and ask the same question to a different person. It will be two people in the same niche, right? I'm saying because their advice would be essentially the same. They don't have the same audience, but they do essentially do the same thing in terms of what they put online. And they'll walk up to both of them, say, any advice for being a content creator, any advice for smaller streamers, and they'll ask this question again and again and again and again and again, seemingly not accepting the answer that's given to them. If you ask them multiple times, you're going to get a very similar answer a majority of the time because there is no definitive answer. Nobody can fucking tell you. If there's a script on how to do it, everybody would be doing it. I don't even need to explain that shit. Since it's been asked so many times, it means it's been answered a majority of the times it's been asked, right? If a question is the most asked question that you have, it's also the most answered question that there is, right? So a lot of these content creators and whatever the fuck have answered this question multiple times. And that information is easily and readily available to anybody who cares to look for it. But the question is still being asked. Why? It could be the case that they took the answer, applied it to what they were doing, didn't work. That makes perfect sense. And you just look for a different answer as opposed to just assuming that this person doesn't fucking know. It's also entirely possible that they don't care about the answer. They kind of just want this guy to be in their TikTok. If a TikTok has somebody of note, it has a higher chance of trending. The best example I can give, but the most extreme example I can give is like if I had a fucking interview with Messi, that thing's getting a few million views and millions of likes, right? Even if it's a street interview on TikTok. A street interview on TikTok, me questioning Messi, that would go crazy. But I have to ask myself, how am I going to get Messi to stop and answer my questions? How am I going to get him to listen to me? He's not in a rush. I managed to stop him and I have this moment to ask him a few questions. I can't think of any questions. What questions do I ask him? I'm going to ask the default questions that I see everybody else ask. In his case, I don't know what it would be. There's a lot more questions when it comes to like specific celebrities. If you're an actor, there might be a few more questions somebody can ask you as opposed to a content creator. And if you're like an athlete, there's a plethora of questions that can be asked. But when it comes to content creators, there's not much to ask. You see everything. Not you see everything, but you see a lot of what they do online. You can see everything they do online. That sounds weird, but you can see everything they do online. If it's a live streamer, their live streams are there. If it's a YouTuber, all their videos are there, right? There's no questions left to be asked. Unless it's drama. In that case, then you don't really know. But most people don't want to like ask about drama, like personal matters. If it's not online, it's not online for a reason. And for the most part, you don't have any right to ask about stuff like that. That's why they don't. So they default to the same question. How do I become a content creator? Well, any advice for small streamers or X, Y, and Z. And these people are being asked these questions because they're in the position that they're in, right? It's an appeal to authority. You're in this position currently and you manage to maintain this position, which must mean you know how to reach this position and how to maintain it, right? It's not something I have to verbally say. It's implied, but that's most people's thinking when it comes to asking like content creators, how do I become a content creator, whatever the fuck, right? You just assume that this person knows because they're in that position. That doesn't make sense to me. You're asking any advice for smaller content creators, smaller streamers, or X, Y, and Z, right? That person was not an authority figure when they were a smaller content creator or a smaller streamer, right? That was years ago for most of these people. At least like 6 for half of, right? They're the newer ones that are like, they became popular in the last like 2 or 3 years. Those people are probably worth asking that question to, but not really though. They woke up one day and were in that position. They put themselves in a position to get lucky enough to be in the position that they're in. They didn't know definitively how to put themselves in the position that they ended up in, if I describe that correctly. You're asking somebody who's big, but you're not asking them because they are qualified to give you that advice. Especially in the modern landscape of the internet, half of the biggest YouTubers don't edit their own videos, and they don't make, not half of that, I don't actually know the statistic, I'm guessing. I do know for a fact that a lot of the biggest YouTubers don't edit their own videos. They don't make their own thumbnails. They might know what thumbnails are clickable for their specific genre. So if you're not in their genre, you're out of luck, ask somebody else, I guess. When they started, when they were smaller content creators, a lot of them didn't have to worry about thumbnails. A lot of them didn't have to worry about like good editing, because the YouTube landscape back when they were starting wasn't something that was considered a profession. It was just something most people were doing for fun. And by proxy of them doing it for fun, they managed to make a career out of it. Those days are gone. You're not in their position. You're doing an entirely different thing. Yes, you can be doing it for fun, right? I rant in my room by myself and I verbalize my thoughts, entirely separate of like wanting to make money or wanting to start a career out of it, right? You can still do it without a monetary incentive or incentive to become a content creator or X, Y, and Z. But you have to kind of deal with the fact that then you're not going to become like a content creator. You can put yourself in a few categories. I don't want to say 3, even though I'm thinking about 3. A category where you want to be a YouTuber, or a category where you want to be posting on the internet, or a mix of both of them, but it's more of a range. If you want to just be posting for the fun of it, then you should do exactly that. But if you want to be a YouTuber, I mean, the people who are currently YouTubers, they can't exactly give you advice for how to become a YouTuber when you aren't already known, because they became known in an environment they could do it for fun without trying to game the YouTube algorithm. And they grew from that into an algorithm where you have to kind of game it and you have to do a specific type of thumbnail and video editing and X, Y, and Z. I'm assuming for the most part. Not even that it's like a baseless assumption, right? Mr. Beast has to be in every single one of his thumbnails because a part of the reason why people click on his thumbnails is because he's Mr. Beast. And the only other way they would know that he's Mr. Beast is if they look at his channel name, which most people don't do for no reason. It's personal branding for a lot of these YouTubers. It's a bit different for each YouTuber. Like Moist Critical doesn't even have a thumbnail editor. He bypasses the need for one because he's Moist Critical. I forgot the last thing I said. YouTube has changed since a lot of these big YouTubers have been smaller YouTubers. They can give you advice on how to make good thumbnails. But if making good thumbnails was enough, then YouTube would be easy, if I'm being honest with you. If it was just as simple as having a good video idea or having a good thumbnail, then YouTube would be easy. Anybody could be a YouTuber just like that, right? And it is the case where they say that anybody can be a YouTuber, right? But I'm talking about how easy it would be. It's a bit more than that, right? You also have to get lucky. The algorithm has to decide whether you make it or not on YouTube. On something like Twitch, it is an algorithm, but it's not Twitch's algorithm. What defines if you make it on some shit like Twitch is your presence on TikTok and YouTube. Back in the day, it used to be you can be on Twitch and one day you'll get lucky. That shit's gone. Twitch's recommendations are shit. I don't even believe there's an algorithm on Twitch. I think it's just if you watch somebody and that person that you watch has collabed with somebody else, they'll just fucking recommend you that other person. I think that's all they do. The rest of it, it's just down to luck. Have fun, try. It's like a fucking battle royale. Get lucky or don't. Twitch does not give a fuck about the fucking new people streaming on Twitch. They don't matter. As far as Twitch is concerned, try your hardest. We don't care. That's how Twitch feels. On Twitch, you can sort Twitch streams from lowest to highest to see the people who are smaller on Twitch. How often have you done that? Because that's essentially the only way you can find those guys. You can watch new Twitch streamers. You just choose not to. If you wanted to, you could. And most people don't. Or even if they do, they stop in once and then they leave instantly. I've done that a few times. A lot of the 1 to 2 viewer Twitch streamers that you can find, a lot of them are kind of sitting in silence, not really saying anything. And I understand that, right? It's very difficult to keep high energy talking to nobody. No one's typing in chat. You've been sitting there for like, what, 3 hours? It's very difficult to want to keep on talking. But in my opinion, I think you should end stream. Do it again tomorrow. You're better off doing quality instead of quantity. I don't see the point in live streaming every day if most of that live stream is just going to be you sitting in silence because you have nothing you want to say, or you've said everything you want to say and now there's nothing to talk about. If you need a chat to say something before you talk in a Twitch stream, I feel like at that point, start a YouTube channel, go to TikTok. I don't fucking know. It feels weird to me. Consistency with no effort is what it feels like. Try harder. Come on. And it sounds weird, but like people aren't going to just sit and watch you in silence. What makes you think that'll be the case? I'm going to be too much of a dickhead. It genuinely irritates me. I click on a bunch of fucking Twitch streamers because I'm bored. That's the thing. If there's nothing on YouTube, I go to Twitch. Sometimes I fucking sort it in lowest to highest and it's just people sitting in silence. If I click on and you're not saying anything, then I have no reason to come back. It's not like I'm in any position to talk, but still, I'm not actively trying to be a Twitch streamer, at least not now. It sounds insulting. It's not meant to be, right? Everybody has to start from somewhere, but it's going to take you longer to reach that point if you're just going to sit in silence for 2 hours. Might as well end stream at that point, right? Or do something else. I'm fucking rambling now, but if you play a game, you lock in on a game, right? And you barely talk. If that's the case and you're trying to be a Twitch streamer, don't fucking play a game then. Don't. If it's difficult for you to find something to say when you're playing a game, then do something else on Twitch. Because the majority of Twitch is supposed to be you. I'm watching for you. I genuinely do not understand it. I fucking sit in silence most of the day. This is a YouTube video. I just cut those parts out. It's as easy as that for me. You chose a harder thing to do, a harder thing to come up with, and you're sitting in silence. You are not awarded that fucking pleasure. Try harder. Yeah, but back to people asking Twitch streamers and YouTubers, how do I become successful on the internet? That information is readily available on those people's Twitch channels, on their VOD channels. You can look and see what they were doing and see how they came up. It'll take a long time, but like, I feel like there's a trait that you might want to take. There's something else making you ask this question. It can't be the actual answer because again, the answer is readily available. It's not even that you have to go look for it yourself. For half of these streamers, since they get asked this question so much, not half of them, I'm lying. It's a few. But since they get asked this question so much, they've compiled the answer by themselves. You can Google Stable Ronaldo's advice to new Twitch streamers or new YouTubers, a Joe Bart's advice for new Twitch streamers and YouTubers, Sinners, Kaisenats, and Mr. Beasts for YouTubers. I'm sure Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, Corey Kenshin, I'm sure all of them have been asked that fucking question before, and I'm sure all of them have answered it the same. Not the exact same answer. The answers would be somewhat similar since they're in the same niche. Also, people just ask anybody, right? Who do you want to be on YouTube, Mr. Beast or Moist Critical? They'll give you two different answers. They're two different content creators. They're two different people. Let's say I wanted to become a YouTuber and I want to be in the same niche as like I'm Dante, and I can't ask I'm Dante. I'm asking Moist Critical. If I can't ask Moist Critical, I ask I'm Dante. That's because they're somewhat similar. If I wanted to be fucking Mr. Beast, who do I ask? I'd ask like modern day KSI or Mac. I forgot that nigga's name. But niggas will just ask anybody. It's supposed to be a way to keep this big creator in the video you're making, in the interview. It's a means of like getting a response out of them. In the case of like Joe Bart, you might put that response on TikTok and you kind of need it to be different. You can't just clip what he's already said about it, put it on TikTok. That video already exists. It's essentially stealing. But if you're the first person to clip that part where he gives a different piece of advice, then you have a video video for yourself, you put it on TikTok, you put it on YouTube, whatever the fuck. If you come across Kaisenat somehow, you get a camera in front of him, you said, Kaisenat, what's your advice for new Twitch streamers? He feels morally obliged to answer, I assume, because you're the biggest Twitch streamer out there. No one's competing with you. Somebody asks, how do I put myself in your position? You feel like answering them, oh, do this and do that. You give them an answer, because if you don't, you feel like you're taking this for granted. You feel like you're also crushing this person's dreams of being something like you. I don't know how to describe it, but if you're in that situation and somebody who's essentially looking up to you, asking for advice, asks you, and you say, I don't have anything, go fuck yourself. You just look at them and say, I don't know. It's gonna feel awkward. It's gonna feel like you're gatekeeping. People don't want to believe that you have to just be lucky to be in that position. Everybody has dreams. Confronting the fact that those dreams, you have to get lucky enough to achieve them, that's an uncomfortable thought. In the same manner that it's an uncomfortable thought that just being unlucky can make you homeless. It shouldn't be down to luck. And that's uncomfortable, but it is true. These big content creators, they feel like they have to answer the question, but in fact, they know there's no piece of advice they can give you that'll definitively put you in the position that they're in. So they give you the same spiel. Be consistent. Do this. Collab with people, X, Y, and Z. The main reason why they tell you to be consistent is just so that you can be posting videos in case you get lucky. You can never be put in their position if you do not try to be. One of the main things that I don't like about it is how non-specific the questions are. Because if the questions are specific, you'd be able to differentiate who's doing this for the TikTok video and who's just genuinely asking. If you had to ask somebody, how do I find a good manager? How do I find a good editor? How do I find a good thumbnail editor? Is there a specific time I would post? Is there a specific duration of video length I should be looking for? When are the best times to stream on Twitch? How long should I stream on Twitch? Should I be posting on TikTok? How do I know if I have a good clip on my hands? X, Y, and Z. If the questions were something like that, I wouldn't think about this shit, because these are people who are genuinely asking questions. But the question always being around the same thing feels like to me that the answer doesn't matter, because again, the answer was always readily available. If the questions were specific enough, I would be like, oh yeah, no, people are just genuinely trying to get into the thing. It's always the same thing. Advice for new streamers, motivation for new streamers. You're here asking these people, can I get an interview? You're stopping in front of their streams. That's what's gonna get you to be popular. Nobody cares. I've never watched a YouTube video where a nigga plugged their thing and went there. It doesn't work. Asking somebody, do you have any advice? And then just saying the topic you want that advice to steer towards. It's just like leaving an open floor for them to respond with anything. Do you have any advice? You're saying, I don't care what you say, as long as it can potentially help the people that will listen to you say it, and as long as it pertains to this specific topic, you can say any. Which means that answer that they could give you could be like Jack Doherty, disrespect people in public, X, Y, and Z. The answer doesn't matter, given by the fact that you asked any advice. It's just an open floor to anything. They can respond with anything, and you're entirely fine with that. Which again leads me to believe that the question is not what's important. It's the person who's answering it. The answer itself is also not important, because that same answer that they're going to give has been given by a myriad of people, and you entirely ignored all of those people to ask this person specifically in this specific context, while you can put them on your TikTok page. It's like the new version of the thing that they used to do, where they would say how many likes for a TikTok, how many likes for a collab. That was a method I fucking hated. It was dreadful. It was horrible. Not dreadful, horrible. I didn't fucking care. But that shit used to annoy me, because everybody has these dreams of being a fucking YouTuber, a Twitch streamer, or TikTok, or whatever the fuck. Everyone's had these dreams. It's normal. But what is up with you, where it's like, I'm just gonna fast track this shit. I'm just gonna post a collab. How many likes for a collab? Right? Because you can't be a dickhead and say like a huge number unironically, right? So you're aware that this person that you're talking to has social pressure to not have a number that's too high, but you also understand they have social pressure to answer your question. That's so cheap. That's so easy. It feels like you're cheating. I don't know. Maybe I'm a piece of shit for it. I'm not looking for like a moral perspective of how something as genuine as somebody who's in a good position, helping somebody grow and achieve their dreams, taking it and essentially bastardizing it into a thing that can potentially help you grow your career. I'm not complaining about that. I'm complaining about how you're doing it. You're cheating. If everybody has to try, you have to try as hard as everybody else. Fuck you walking up to somebody and asking, can I be your cameraman? Can I do this for you? Fuck you. No. Try. If we're all doing it, you also have to try. I don't like when niggas cheat like this, bro. It's not a test. It's real fucking life. These are jobs that niggas can get. You cannot fast track the process. You make it or you don't. That makes it sound like I care more than that. I've never commented on shit like that. I'm just saying, nigga, we've all had these dreams. What makes you think that you can cheat to get to them? Fuck you. No. They say anyone can do it because I feel like that's objectively true. But they also say anybody can do it because they weren't doing anything specific when they did it. They were just posting the same way that everybody else who's trying to succeed currently is just posting. And then they got lucky. That's how it happened. There was nothing specific that they did that you're not doing. They know that. And a lot of the people who are currently trying to come up know that. But there's a small subsect of people who pretend not to know that and then continue to ask these people if you have any advice. They don't. I think they know how to prevent you from falling off. But you have to be on before you can fall off. Nobody knows who you are. The formula isn't the only thing at work, is what I'm saying. Smitty has a video. It's like a fucking 6-hour video of him sitting in silence, watching paint dry in a game. That has like, I think, a few million views. No one is clicking on that if it wasn't for him being the one who posted it. Not that he can just post anything and it'll get a bunch of views, but he can post more than a new YouTuber could. If you're a new YouTuber, you have to post a video that gets views regardless of who you are. You get put into a different category depending on where in the YouTube or Twitch streaming food chain you're in. The bandwagon effect exists for a reason. I'm not qualified to give advice. I don't don't fucking have advice. I don't know. 0 subscribers. The past video has 0 views. I don't care. People make tutorial videos as a career path on YouTube, which also makes no sense to me. How do you know? The only videos on your channel are videos talking about how to become popular on YouTube, and that made you go popular on YouTube. But if you didn't make those videos, you wouldn't have a YouTube career. I don't believe you know how to do that, right? And I know it sounds contradicting when I just went on a rant that I don't believe the people who did that know how to do that. But if there's anybody who doesn't know how to do that, it would be you. I'm just saying, even though I don't really think that a lot of the advice is enough to actually help you reach that point, the advice is still useful regardless, right? That person can only teach you how to cater to their own audience, and every audience is different. Yeah, there's overlap, but that overlap is only so much. You cannot cater to an audience you do not have, and you'd have to cater to an audience that you would get, but you don't know those people yet. I feel like my hairline's fucked up.